Lately, I have been seeing more and more Yu-Gi-Oh videos focus on a newly emerging genre of content known as sealed only. This style focuses on both the excitement of a pack opening while at the same time incorporating a storyline, goals, and just far more depth than the usual run-of-the-mill pack opening channel. Noticing and hopping on board a particular trend is always somewhat difficult. If you hop on too late, you can be seen as a bandwagoner, and too soon you could be seen as just a copycat of one particular individual. And no matter when you do it, as long as it is a somewhat novel idea, you will always run the risk of simply looking like a knockoff version of some much larger online personalities. I want to stand out, which I recently did when I visited my new local card shop for the first time ever. Being a somewhat antisocial nerd in a room full of equally antisocial nerds resulted in my first time there being somewhat awkward, but I soon had a multitude of individuals quickly warm up to me. One such fellow, a man named Kevin, invited me to duel him. This was no ordinary duel, however, for he had 2 decks ready to go, and these decks were special. The first time I've played it since the format itself, Kevin had introduced me to the wondrous world of GOAT format. Quickly rushing home, I soon realized that despite me collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards since my early elementary school years, I lacked a lot of necessary cards required to properly play GOAT format. So after looking at how poorly my YouTube videos were doing, reorganizing my cards, and ultimately just taking some time off from the game, I realized something. What if I did a sealed only series, but with the goal to make the greatest GOAT deck of all time? GOAT format is considered by many to be one of the greatest formats to play. A completely fan-made format, or a game of Yu-Gi-Oh using a specific ban list, card list, and set of rules. This subgenre of Yu-Gi-Oh uses cards from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh up to the Lost Millennium. This format of Yu-Gi-Oh is known as a fun, slower game which requires strategy and forethought. Due to the smaller, never-changing card pool, unlike current Yu-Gi-Oh's ever-changing and evolving formats, GOAT format allows players to truly explore and utilize many different cards and craft and hone specific strategies on a much deeper level. GOAT format is by far the most popular unofficial style of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, with many card shops officially adding GOAT format to their permanent rotating tournament schedule. I decided to enlist the help of some experts, so I decided to ask my local GOAT enthusiast what all the hubbub was about. So thank you so much, Kevin, for joining me here today. My first question for you is, what is GOAT format?
So GOAT format is a Yu-Gi-Oh format based around the April 2005 ban list. It's a popular format. It's a retro format, but a lot of people have started to play it more in recent years because you get to play with more ban cards that aren't legal now, as well as a much slower format. There's a lot more interaction, and it's overall a really good time.
Now, I've heard of 2002 format, Necros format, and though not fondly, even Dragon Ruler format. But why do you think Yu-Gi-Oh players tend to gravitate towards playing GOAT format specifically?
So I think the reason why people like GOAT format, it's a lot simpler. It's kind of like 2002 where it's kind of bare bones and there's not a lot actually going on. The cards are still strong, the cards are more simple. They're not like nowadays where you have blink summoning and special summoning and everything's like really crazy. You know, your turn is kind of set one pass and like that's kind of it. So people like that because it's slower, there's more interaction. You feel like you're going to get a turn or two or 20 to play your game. You know, when deck out is a possible way to win a game, people are more likely to play because they're not feeling like they couldn't play on their first turn. They had ways to play. You know, a lot of it becomes what kind of interactions you had, and like it's your misplays that make you lost the game, not your opponent just opened nuts and you couldn't do anything about it.
What drew you into GOAT format?
So when I first really started playing GOAT in like Spiral format, kind of the tier 0 format, I played Spiral and I liked the format, but there were a lot of times you'd find somebody during a tournament and you'd be like, do you want to just play GOAT? Something like less restrictive where you didn't feel like the dice were kind of dependent on the games. So I like the slowness of the format. I like playing with ban cards. Everyone likes activating Pot of Greed and Greasing Charity. Those kind of things always feel good. So I think just playing with an older player pool and being able to feel like the better player won. Because again, like I said earlier, GOAT matches really kind of come down to resource management, and I felt like it actually made me a better player. just because when you activate cards just to activate them, you feel like you're wasting your cards. And then GOAT really teaches you can't just activate stuff. You can't just set 5 with heavy storms in the format. So it makes you play around cards, even like looking at your opponent's grave, trying to find out how they use them. A Psycho-Red Armor or a Mirror Force or something like that, so you can play around your opponent. I feel like GOAT teaches values that, while not applicable all the time to real Yu-Gi-Oh, just because how fast it is, you do learn the more resource management, especially in the grind game. I think it makes you a better player, and that's kind of why I liked it.
Exarian Universe. What are your thoughts, and why is it so divisive?
Okay, so Exarian Universe is definitely a contention among GOAT players. If you go just from like release date, I kind of learned this recently. So Exarian Universe, the 2005 tins of that day came out on September 1. Now, Cybernetic Revolution, the set that it released as Cyber Dragon, and in my opinion actually breaks GOAT format, came out on August 17th. So in reality, I feel like the way people play GOAT a lot of times with Cybernetic Revolution not being played and Exarion being played, it's kind of a format that didn't exist. I mean, I know that sometimes street dates always get broken, so if somebody had the cards earlier, that would, they could play with the cards maybe. I don't know, it was upper deck, so maybe the rules are different. But I feel like in that regard, it's really becomes a catch-22. Are we playing with Cyber Dragon? Are we playing with Exarion? Should we not? But even if you cut that out and you just say Exarion by itself, it's an 1800 body, it's got 1900 defense, it crashes with Air Knight if it's in defense mode, it pierces, it's dark. It does all these things and you're like, wow, this card's really good. Most decks are going to play at least 2 to 3. If you're playing like Beast, you're playing 3. It's just a really good card in the format. Then when you take it out, Scapegoat becomes more powerful because you're not worried about dying to piercing damage. You could play more awkward dark techs, Skill Dark Magician. You could play Aqua Soldier. There's lots of interesting cards you can use when you take it out. So personally, I don't use it, but like if you play it, it's still a really good card. So I guess it really becomes a personal preference and a community preference.
What would you tell someone who is considering looking into playing GOAT?
So I would say definitely do it. It's a rather cheap format to get into. Your bare bones deck is mostly commons. There's like 4 or 5 cards that are probably a couple bucks. I mean, BLS, Delinquent Duo, and Metamorphosis are probably going to be your most expensive cards. So if you're going to play like pure GOAT, those are probably the hardest ones to find. But like, you could play like an aggro deck for like probably $20 or $30. So it's just a really cool extra format to have because a lot of people have it. I know I carry 3 decks on me at all times. So if you want to play something different with friends or even just something casually, it's a good format to have. I feel like it gets you better, but it's just something different to play when you don't want to play your standard format.
So thank you so much, Kevin, for doing this for me. I got you a little present. This is a signed copy of Scapegoat.
Oh, this is so cool. I'll put it in my group deck.
After learning a little bit about GOAT format, I decided to do some more separate research for myself, and that's when I stumbled upon goatformat.com. This website literally has everything one needs in order to understand GOAT format, including rulings, deck lists, the ban list at the time, and arguably the most important, a comprehensive Google Sheet document with every single legal card within GOAT format. For this entire series, I hope to get comfortable with this little website, for I will be referencing and using it as a guideline throughout my GOAT journey. The only issue I will stray from in regards to following the teachings of goatformat.com is that I've decided to consider Exarian Universe to be a part of GOAT format, because why not add just one more card to the mix, Since GOAT format spans from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh's release here in the TCG up until the Lost Millennium, I figured we would start out with opening up some Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon packs, since that's where it all started here in America. Since GOAT format spans from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh's release here in the TCG up until the Lost Millennium, I figured we would start out with opening some Metal Raiders packs, since that's pretty close to where it all started here in America. Since GOAT format spans from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh's release here in the TCG up until the Lost Millennium, I figured we would start out with opening some Legendary Collection Yugi and Legendary Collection Joey packs, since those hold a lot of old school cards necessary to what we need.